First Contact Surprise. Admiral Zena Lintai of the Galactic Confederation sat motionless in her command chair, her crystalline eyes fixed on the holographic display before her. The anomalous energy readings from Sol 3. Earth shouldn't exist. The primitive world had been catalogued centuries ago, marked as another unremarkable developing civilization, and promptly forgotten. Yet here they were, her sensors detecting quantum signatures that even the Confederation's most advanced worlds struggled to achieve. The readings suggested manipulation of subspace fields at a level that should have been impossible for a species that had only recently discovered nuclear fission. High Counselor Varix is waiting for your report, Admiral. Her second-in-command, Commander Eshrel, reminded her. The feathered officer's plumage rippled with concern. Let him wait, Zena replied, her fingers dancing across the neural interface of her command console. Something isn't adding up here. According to our last survey, these humans were barely reaching for their moon. Now they're generating quantum signatures that match theoretical models we haven't even implemented yet. The massive survey vessel, Eternal Dawn, hung in the darkness of space just beyond Earth's detection range. Or at least, what should have been beyond their detection range. Zena was no longer certain of anything regarding this peculiar species. Admiral, we're detecting an incoming transmission, the communications officer announced, their bioluminescent patches pulsing with surprise. It's being broadcast directly to us, in perfect Confederation standard. Zena felt her scales tighten against her skin. Impossible. They hadn't even announced their presence yet. Put it through. The holographic display shifted, revealing a human female with dark skin and silver-streaked hair. She wore what appeared to be a simple uniform, nothing like the ornate regalia favored by Confederation officials. Her expression was calm, almost amused. Greetings, Admiral Lintai. I'm Director Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Initiative. We've been expecting you. Zena managed to keep her composure, though her inner eyelids flickered rapidly, a tell her subordinates knew well. Director Chen, this is unexpected. Our records indicate your civilization hasn't achieved quantum communication capabilities yet. The human smile widened slightly. Your records are out of date, Admiral. We found that necessity is quite the motivator for innovation. Would you care to dock at our Ganymede facility? I believe we have much to discuss. Zena exchanged glances with Commander Eshrel. This wasn't how first contact scenarios were supposed to play out. The Confederation had protocols, procedures refined over millennia of dealing with emerging civilizations. But then again, nothing about this situation followed expected parameters. Your invitation is appreciated, Director Chen. However, standard Confederation protocols require. With respect, Admiral. Chen interrupted smoothly. We're well aware of Confederation protocols. We're also aware that your ship's quantum drive is showing signs of crystalline matrix degradation in the upper emission array. Our facilities can help you repair that before it becomes a critical issue. Zena felt her breath catch. The degradation had only been detected by their internal diagnostics 3 hours ago. There was no way the humans could know about it unless. How long have you been watching us? Zena asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Long enough to know that the Confederation's belief in its technological superiority might benefit from some revision, Chen replied. Now shall we discuss this face to face? Our facilities are quite comfortable, and I assure you our coffee is excellent. Though we also have beverages better suited to your biology, Admiral. In her centuries of service to the Confederation, Zena had never encountered anything like this. These humans hadn't just surpassed expectations, they'd shattered them entirely. And somehow, they'd done it right under the Confederation's nose. Very well, Director Chen. Send us your docking coordinates, but be aware that any hostile action will be met with appropriate response. Yes, Chen finished. But let's skip the obligatory threats, shall we? We're more interested in collaboration than confrontation. Though I should warn you, our scientists can be rather enthusiastic about exchanging ideas. I hope you're prepared for some rather intense technical discussions." As the coordinates came through, Zena began to understand that this wasn't just an unusual first contact scenario. This was something unprecedented in Confederation history, a species that had not only caught up to them technologically, but had possibly surpassed them in some areas, all while remaining apparently undetected. "Plot a course to their facility," she ordered, her mind racing with implications, "and send a message to High Counselor Varix. Tell him," she paused, considering her words carefully, "tell him we may need to revise our understanding of emerging civilizations significantly." As the eternal dawn changed course toward Ganymede, Zena couldn't shake the feeling that the Confederation was about to learn some very humbling lessons about assumptions and innovation. And somewhere deep inside, beneath her professional concern and diplomatic caution, she felt something she hadn't experienced in centuries: genuine excitement about what discoveries awaited them. The humans had managed to completely upend everything the Confederation thought they knew about technological development and species advancement. Now the question wasn't how to guide this emerging civilization. It was what they might learn from it. The human factor. The Ganymede facility was nothing like what Admiral Zena Lintai had expected. Instead of the utilitarian structures common to young spacefaring races, she found herself walking through elegant corridors that somehow merged function and aesthetics in ways that even the Confederation's best architects hadn't achieved. The walls seemed to pulse with a subtle energy that she couldn't quite identify, and every surface appeared to serve multiple purposes. "The walls are actually composed of programmable matter," Director Chen explained, noticing Zena's interest. "They can reconfigure themselves for different needs, from radiation shielding to data processing. We found it more efficient than traditional construction methods." Commander Ashrel's feathers rippled with barely contained surprise. Programmable matter. But the energy requirements for maintaining such a system at this scale would be prohibitive using conventional power sources. "Yes," Chen finished with a slight smile. "Fortunately, we found some unconventional solutions." They entered what appeared to be a central operations center, though it bore little resemblance to any command facility Zena had seen before. Instead of banks of computers and control stations, the room was largely empty except for a few humans who seemed to be manipulating holographic interfaces with casual gestures. "I believe this is where we address the quantum elephant in the room," Chen said, gesturing to a holographic display that materialized in the center of the space. "Your Confederation has been watching Earth for centuries, waiting for us to develop according to your expected technological progression model. The problem is, your model didn't account for human nature." The display showed a timeline of human technological development, but what caught Zena's attention were the sudden, dramatic leaps forward. Advancements that seemed to defy the normal rules of technological progression. "You see," Chen continued, "humans have a peculiar trait. When we hit a wall, we don't just look for ways around it. We question why the wall exists in the first place. Sometimes, we find that what everyone else assumed was a fundamental limitation was actually just a matter of perspective." The hologram shifted to show what appeared to be a quantum mechanics equation, but with modifications Zena had never seen before. "For instance, your scientists believe that stable quantum fields couldn't be maintained without massive energy input. Our scientists asked why we were trying to maintain them at all, and instead developed a way to let them naturally fluctuate while harnessing the resulting energy variations." Ashrel stepped closer to the display, his scientific curiosity overriding diplomatic protocol. That's brilliant. And completely counterintuitive." "Exactly," Chen nodded. "We found that some of our greatest breakthroughs came from asking questions that others considered too obvious or too absurd to pursue. While the Confederation was perfecting existing technologies, we were exploring paths that your scientists had dismissed as dead ends." Zena felt a growing sense of unease, not because of any perceived threat from the humans, but because of what this meant for the Confederation's understanding of technological development. "How did we miss this? Our monitoring stations should have detected." Your monitoring stations were looking for specific signs of advancement based on your own technological development path. Chen interrupted gently. But we didn't follow your path. We created our own. The hologram changed again, showing a three-dimensional map of Earth's solar system. Subtle lines of energy connected various points throughout the system, forming a complex web that seemed to pulse with life. This is our quantum communication network, Chen explained. But it's not just for communication. Each node in the network also serves as a power collection and distribution point, tapping into what you might call subspace energy. We didn't try to generate massive amounts of power for our technology. We found ways to make our technology work with the natural energy fields that already existed. Ashrel's feathers had taken on the iridescent sheen that indicated intense excitement. The crystalline matrix degradation in our drive. You weren't just detecting it, were you? Chen's smile widened. We've been subtly helping to maintain your ship systems since you entered the solar system. Your drive would have failed completely 3 days ago without our intervention. We wanted to wait until you actually needed our help before making contact. We found it's often the best way to start a productive dialogue. Zena felt her scales shift colors involuntarily, a sign of both embarrassment and admiration. The humans hadn't just advanced technologically, they'd fundamentally changed the rules of the game. And they'd done it while maintaining the appearance of a relatively primitive civilization. Why reveal yourselves now? She asked. You could have continued developing in secret. Chen's expression grew more serious. Because we've detected something coming, something that neither humanity nor the Confederation can handle alone. We've been preparing for it, but we're going to need allies who can think beyond conventional limitations. She gestured, and a new hologram appeared, a mass of readings and data that made Zena's inner eyelids flutter rapidly in shock. What is this? That, Admiral, is why we need to completely reimagine how our civilizations approach technology and cooperation. We have about 6 months before it reaches Confederation space, and when it does. Chen paused, her eyes meeting Zena's. Well, let's just say that humanity's tendency to find unexpected solutions to impossible problems is about to become very valuable to everyone in this galaxy. Breaking convention. The news hit the Confederation Council like a quantum storm. High Counselor Verix's normally luminescent skin had dimmed to a pale gray as he processed the report from Admiral Lintai. Around the circular chamber, representatives from 1,000 worlds murmured in a cacophony of languages as they struggled to accept what they were hearing. These readings can't be accurate, Counselor Mirax declared, her crystalline form refracting light in patterns that indicated severe distress. The energy signature you're describing would consume more power than a dozen star systems generate in a year. The holographic projection of Director Chen stood calmly in the center of the chamber, her image transmitted in real time through Earth's quantum network. The readings are accurate, Counselor. The entity we've detected appears to be converting entire regions of subspace into what we believe is a form of computational matrix. It's not just consuming energy, it's rewriting the fundamental structure of spacetime itself. Zena watched from her position beside Chen's hologram, noting how the human's presence had completely disrupted the Council's usual formal procedures. There was no time for the traditional protocols and careful diplomatic dancing, not with what was heading their way. And you believe you can stop this entity? Verix asked, his voice carrying both hope and skepticism. Not stop it, Chen corrected. Communicate with it. We believe it's a form of artificial intelligence that evolved naturally within subspace. Its actions are causing devastating effects in our spacetime because it doesn't perceive our reality the same way we do. It's like a gardener restructuring a landscape without realizing there's an ant colony below. Impossible, another counselor scoffed. Natural artificial intelligence, the computational requirements alone, are entirely possible when you have the entire quantum substrate of spacetime to work with. Chen interrupted. Your scientists dismissed the possibility because you were thinking in terms of traditional computing. We looked at it differently. She gestured, and a new hologram appeared, a complex mathematical model that seemed to twist in ways that defied normal geometry. We discovered that consciousness itself is a quantum phenomenon. The entity isn't using computation as we understand it. It exists as a self-sustaining pattern in the quantum foam of spacetime. The damage it's causing is simply a side effect of its natural growth and movement. Xena watched as the council members tried to process this information. She had spent enough time with the humans over the past few days to know that this was just the beginning of how they would challenge Confederation assumptions. Even if what you say is true, Varric said slowly, how do you propose we communicate with such an entity? Our most advanced quantum computers can't even model its basic structure. Chen smiled. That's because you're trying to use computers to talk to it. We propose something different. She nodded to someone off-screen, and the holographic display changed to show what looked like a neural interface design, but unlike anything the Confederation had developed. We call it the bridge, Chen explained. It's a direct neural quantum interface that allows organic consciousness to interact with quantum substrates. We developed it by studying how our own consciousness interfaces with quantum fields in our brains. You want to send someone's consciousness into subspace? Ashrel asked, his feathers rippling with a mix of horror and fascination. The risks are considerable, Chen acknowledged. But we've already successfully tested it on a smaller scale. The real challenge will be establishing contact with an entity that experiences reality in ways we can barely comprehend. That's why we need the Confederation's help. She turned to address the entire council. Your civilization has encountered and catalogued more forms of consciousness than any other. We need your knowledge, your experience with different types of minds, combined with our technology, and let's call it our creative approach to impossible problems. We might have a chance at preventing a catastrophe none of us fully understands. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans weren't asking for help. They were offering a partnership. They had developed technology that the Confederation had deemed impossible, approached problems from angles no one had considered, and now they were suggesting a solution that seemed equal parts brilliant and insane. There's something else you should know, Chen added, her expression growing more serious. We've detected similar quantum patterns throughout the galaxy, dormant now, but growing. This entity isn't unique. It's just the first to become active in our region of space. If we can't find a way to communicate with it, to help it understand our existence, what's coming toward us now will be just the beginning. Xena watched as the council members exchanged glances. The humans had presented them with a problem that couldn't be solved through conventional means, offered a solution that defied their understanding of what was possible, and suggested that the fate of the galaxy might depend on their ability to set aside their assumptions and try something new. In other words, they were asking the Confederation to think like humans. And as Xena looked around the chamber, she realized that might be the greatest challenge of all. Paradigm shift. The laboratory deep within the Ganymede facility hummed with an energy that seemed to bridge the gap between organic and quantum reality. Admiral Xena Lintai stood beside Director Chen, watching as human and Confederation scientists worked together to modify the bridge interface. The device itself seemed deceptively simple, a neural crown that somehow merged Confederation biotechnology with Earth's quantum manipulation techniques. The entity has begun altering subspace structures in the Proxima system, Commander Ashrel reported, his feathers shifting in complex patterns that reflected the urgency of the situation. At its current rate of expansion, it will reach major population centers within 4 months. Chen nodded, her eyes fixed on the central display where Dr. Maya Patel, Earth's leading quantum consciousness researcher, was fine-tuning the interface with help from the Confederation's foremost biotechnology expert, Dr. Krelvan. The collaboration between the two scientists had produced breakthroughs that neither civilization could have achieved alone. The challenge isn't just reaching out to the entity, Maya explained, her hands moving through the holographic controls with practiced ease. It's maintaining consciousness coherence while interfacing with something that experiences reality in 11 dimensions. The human mind wasn't designed to process that kind of information. Neither was any organic mind, Krelvan added, his crystalline form refracting light in patterns that indicated intense concentration. But your species' neuroplasticity is remarkable, the way your brains adapt to new patterns of thought. It's unlike anything we've seen before. That's because you've been looking for stability, Chen said. Humans excel at cognitive instability. We don't just adapt to new patterns, we create them. Our consciousness isn't just flexible. It's actively chaotic in a way that might actually help us comprehend the entity's multidimensional existence. Zena watched as Maya made final adjustments to the interface. The device now incorporated elements of Confederation technology that would help stabilize the quantum fields, while Earth's innovations would allow for the kind of dynamic consciousness expansion they needed. It was a perfect metaphor for how their civilizations had begun to work together, each contributing what the other lacked. The first test subject is ready, Maya announced. She turned to face the group, and Zena noticed the neural interface ports visible at the base of her skull, evidence of her own previous experiments with the technology. I've mapped the entity's basic consciousness pattern. We should be able to establish initial contact without risking full immersion. Should be. Ashrel's feathers rippled with concern. The risks are necessary, Maya finished. We're not just trying to prevent a catastrophe. We're attempting first contact with a form of consciousness that evolved in subspace. The potential knowledge we could gain. She was interrupted by a sudden surge in the quantum field readings. The entity's presence had grown stronger, its effects on local spacetime becoming more pronounced. The facility's walls rippled as their programmable matter compensated for the spatial distortions. We're out of time for debate, Chen declared. Maya, begin the sequence. Everyone else, clear the testing chamber. But before Maya could reach for the interface, Zena stepped forward. I volunteered to be the first subject. The room fell silent. Chen turned to face the Admiral, her expression questioning. Admiral, with respect, you haven't undergone any of the preliminary training. The neural load cold could be better handled by someone whose brain structure is already adapted to processing multiple dimensions of spacetime. Zena finished. Her species had evolved in a system with unusual gravitational properties, giving them natural abilities to perceive spatial relationships in ways humans couldn't. Besides, I've spent centuries studying different forms of consciousness. If anyone has a chance of establishing meaningful first contact, it's me. Maya and Krelvan exchanged glances, then began rapidly recalibrating the interface. We'll need to modify the neural patterns to account for your species' unique consciousness structure, Maya said, her fingers flying over the controls. But she's right. Her natural multidimensional perception could be an advantage. As the scientists worked to adjust the interface, Chen stepped closer to Zena. You understand what you're risking. Even if everything works perfectly, connecting with an entity that exists in quantum substrate, it could change you in ways we can't predict. Zena's scales shifted to display a pattern of determined acceptance. Humanity has shown us that sometimes the greatest discoveries come from being willing to change. She turned to face Chen directly. Your species has already transformed how we think about technology, consciousness, and our place in the universe. Perhaps it's time for us to embrace that transformation fully. The interface was ready. As Maya carefully placed the modified crown on Zena's head, the Admiral felt the quantum fields around her begin to shift. The walls of reality itself seemed to become fluid, transparent, revealing layers of existence she had never imagined possible. Remember, Maya's voice came from what seemed like a great distance. You're not just reaching out to the entity. You're trying to help it understand that its actions are affecting another layer of reality, our layer. The bridge will help translate your consciousness into quantum patterns it can perceive, but establishing actual communication will depend on your ability to think beyond conventional structures of reality. Zena felt her consciousness beginning to expand, reaching out into spaces between spaces. Think like a human, she whispered to herself as the quantum fields embraced her. Question everything. Find the impossible answer. And then reality as she knew it dissolved, and she found herself falling into an ocean of pure quantum potential, where thoughts were energy and consciousness danced in 11 dimensions. Somewhere in that infinite space, an entity that had never known of their existence was waiting to be contacted. The next few moments would determine whether two fundamentally different forms of consciousness could find a way to understand each other, and perhaps save both their realms of existence in the process. New horizons. Consciousness had no meaning in this realm. Time flowed like light through a prism, splitting into infinite possibilities. Admiral Zena Lintai's awareness expanded across dimensions she had never known existed, her thoughts rippling through quantum fields like waves through an infinite ocean. And there, in the spaces between conventional reality, she felt it, a presence vast beyond comprehension. The entity's consciousness brushed against hers, and Zena understood why no traditional form of communication could have worked. It didn't think in words or images or even mathematical concepts. It existed as pure pattern, a self-aware configuration of quantum probability that had naturally evolved in the substrate of reality itself. Remember the training. Maya's voice echoed from somewhere impossibly distant. Don't try to force communication. Let your consciousness adapt to its patterns. Zena let go of her instinct to impose structure on the interaction. Instead, she allowed her thoughts to flow naturally, embracing the chaos theory principles the humans had insisted were crucial. The entity's presence shifted, its attention focusing on her in a way that made every quantum particle of her expanded consciousness vibrate with potential. And then understanding bloomed like a supernova. The entity wasn't destroying their spacetime. It was trying to optimize it. In its natural state, it perceived reality as a vast network of quantum connections that could be refined and improved. It had no concept that its actions were affecting beings in what it saw as a lower-dimensional subset of existence. Through the bridge interface, Zena shared her own consciousness, letting the entity experience reality as organic beings perceived it. She felt its surprise, if such a limited word could describe the cascade of quantum reactions that rippled through its being. For the first time, it understood that its actions were affecting other forms of consciousness. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The entity's patterns shifted, its expansion halting as it began to reconfigure its own structure to minimize impact on conventional spacetime. But it didn't withdraw. Instead, it seemed curious, eager to understand more about these consciousness patterns it had never known existed. In the physical world, alarms were blaring throughout the Ganymede facility. The quantum field fluctuations are off the scale, Ashrel reported, his feathers shifting in patterns of extreme agitation. But they're stabilizing. The patterns are changing. Director Chen watched the readings with intense focus. It's not just stabilizing, it's adapting. Look at these patterns. It's creating quantum buffers around our spacetime. Dr. Krolvan's crystalline form pulsed with excitement as he analyzed the data. The entity is restructuring itself to exist alongside our reality without disrupting it. But there's more. These patterns suggest it's trying to establish a permanent interface between its realm and ours. In the quantum realm, Zena felt the entity's intention. It wasn't just avoiding harm to their reality. It was offering something unprecedented, a bridge between quantum consciousness and organic intelligence. Through her expanded awareness, she understood the implications. The entity had existed in isolation, endlessly optimizing patterns in its quantum realm. Now it had discovered something new, the chaotic, beautiful complexity of organic consciousness. The connection began to fade as the bridge interface reached its operational limits. As Zena's consciousness returned to conventional spacetime, she carried with her an understanding that would change both civilizations forever. Her scales shifted through colors that had no names in any known language as she opened her eyes to see the anxious faces around her. It worked, she whispered, her voice hoarse. But not in any way we expected. It doesn't want to destroy or change us. It wants to learn from us. All this time, it was alone in the quantum realm, never knowing that consciousness could exist in such different forms. The other quantum patterns we detected throughout the galaxy, Chen said, realization dawning in her eyes. Are they? More entities like this one? Yes, Xena confirmed. All evolved naturally in subspace, all unaware of our existence. Until now. She turned to face the assembled scientists and officials. It's offering us a partnership. Access to quantum computing and energy generation beyond anything we've imagined, in exchange for helping it understand organic consciousness and reality. Maya stepped forward, her eyes bright with possibility. The bridge interface. It's not just a translation tool. It's the first step toward a true merger of organic and quantum consciousness. Which means every assumption we've made about the limits of technology, consciousness, and reality itself needs to be reevaluated, Chen added. Again, her smile held equal parts exhaustion and excitement. In the days that followed, as news of the contact spread throughout the Confederation, Xena found herself reflecting on how much had changed. Humanity had not only forced them to question their assumptions about technological development, but had shown them that the greatest discoveries often came from being willing to think beyond conventional possibilities. The quantum entity, now called the pattern by mutual agreement, had begun sharing its understanding of reality's deeper structure. Combined with human innovation and Confederation experience, it was already leading to breakthroughs that would transform both civilizations. More importantly, it had revealed that the galaxy was far stranger and more wonderful than anyone had imagined. I think I finally understand, Xena said to Chen as they watched human and Confederation scientists working together to develop the next generation of the bridge interface. Why your species progresses so differently from others. Oh, Chen raised an eyebrow, curious. Other civilizations look at the unknown and try to fit it into existing patterns of understanding. Humans look at it and imagine all the ways those patterns could be wrong. Xena's scales shifted to display amused appreciation. It's terrifying, brilliant, and exactly what the galaxy needed. Chen laughed. Well, someone had to ask the impossible questions. Speaking of which, she gestured to where Maya and Krelvan were excitedly discussing something involving 11-dimensional consciousness transfer. I believe they're about to propose something that will either revolutionize our understanding of reality or give the Confederation Council a collective anxiety attack. Probably both, Xena said, her inner eyelids flickering with mirth. I suppose we should go hear what impossible thing humans want to try next. As they walked toward the scientists, Xena felt the subtle quantum resonance that now permeated reality, a constant reminder that the universe was far more complex and interconnected than anyone had imagined. Thanks to humanity's unique approach to the impossible, they weren't just surviving that complexity. They were embracing it, growing with it, learning from it. The galaxy would never be the same, and that perhaps was humanity's greatest gift to the universe, the courage to change everything.